Welcome to We Got Issues. Hi, everybody. I'm Brian Compton, aka BComp. You might remember me from the haterade I've received in the comment section of both Nerdist and G4 videos. And joining me always is the Robin to my Batman, my good friend Josh Markwith. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, this sidekick thing better not be a running joke through
It's going to be
the episodes.
Every single episode. I'm going to find something to get you on.
It's gonna cut down to I don't know, like the running shoes to my Forrest Gump or something.
It's
to my Forrest Gump.
The Ringo to my rest of the Beatles kind of thing.
Oh goodness! Like Brian said, my name is Josh Markwith, and I'm not on Nerdist or G4 or anything. You probably might.
That's not true. That's not true. You were on Nerdist with me. You were on Nerdist with me.
All right. Yes, I was with this version of the show. We were on Alpha.
Yes.
The precursor to Alpha Comic Book Club and the Wednesday show. We were the first. I just want to say that right now.
And also, you were also on G4 as an intern, I believe.
I was, yeah. You might recognize me as the dancing tooth of one episode. I also danced as a bearded Charles Manson when he had that weird dance in the court. So yeah, that's my
serious?
Oh,
Are
yeah,
you serious?
I think I might even have the video of it somewhere. I think I found it when we were working on the Thanksgiving episode. I think I even found it when we were looking at it.
The Thanksgiving special. I remember that.
Yeah. But okay. So, but anyway, yeah. So I mean, like Brian said, we're just two people who have loved comics for most of our lives, and we get a lot of questions from our friends and family whenever like a movie or a new storyline kind of comes up in the news, or something different happens with the MCU or the new DC stuff, the casting. And we've always been having these conversations, in person, and we thought, why not do what everybody else is doing?
Or our text chain, just a
barrage
of commentary.
Yeah. And we just thought, why not do what everybody else is doing and make a podcast out of it?
Yeah, because there's not enough of them out there, that's the thing.
No, and to be fair, we did have this up. We got issues on Alpha in 2018,
2019. There was six.
Yeah.
I think we had 6-7 viewers. We were at that time the highest rated of that hour,
right? And half of those were my parents, so we were pretty up there. Hey, but I mean, with our our back and forth and our chats and stuff, we thought this would be a great way again to bring this back up, start chatting and talking about just different comic books, our love for comic books, and different storylines that people have been asking us about, just in a very laid back way. It's almost like we want it to be almost like the conversations you would hear in the back of a comic book shop, of just people looking through back issues and just talking about what they love.
The cool comic shop, not the comic book guy comic
right.
shop. Although there are going to be those kind of disagreements between the two of us as well.
Right.
I mean, because we all know who the best Green Lantern is, Kyle Rayner, and we're not going to hear anything otherwise.
Brian is usually wrong, and just when we talk about Hal Jordan, he'll know what we're talking about.
I mean, as every single comment in the Fresh Ink has let me know.
Yes. Oh goodness,
Brian,
yeah.
Was it like? It's like his takes are worse, and his takes are bad, and his tastes are even worse.
Good. I mean, there's one thing that we love about nerds. It's just how they talk to other nerds. Which is, I mean, that's another thing about this podcast. It's going to be completely different from that, in the sense of, we say that we know a lot, but we also know we don't know everything. We are anti-gatekeeping in here. So, I mean,
this wasn't discussed with me. What are you talking about?
Yeah, what are you talking about? I want to keep the gate closed.
I don't want people to like this thing that I like. Exactly. I want to be alone in this. It's really funny you should say that, because
name
it's
3
true.
songs from that shirt. Name 3 songs from that band T-shirt.
Let's give me a break. It's funny because look, I am a big proponent of hey, like what you like. If you don't like it, that's fine. Don't buy it. It's not that big a deal. But it's like, we love this stuff. Why wouldn't we want more people to read them? Why are we gonna push people out because they happen to like, Captain Marvel or Black Panther or whatever? It's like, I like Captain Marvel and Black Panther. You can like Captain Marvel and Black Panther. We can all like Captain Marvel. Oh, you don't?
Right.
That's fine. like something else then, I don't
Right.
care.
Or even, like, oh, you don't know about this? Then wow, you're not a real fan. Like, I hate that so much. It's
Well, and
more
that's
this is more of like a, you don't know about this? Oh, let me tell you how cool this is.
well, and to that said, it's like I am gonna be, sometimes I will be critical about certain things, but it's like
Mhm.
it should be, critiqued with like, here's what I would have done to make it better. But it's like, look, at the end of the day, if I was so good at this stuff, I would be drawing them or
Right.
writing them or whatever. So what the hell do I know? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I mean, like everybody else, we have our opinions, we have our
Yeah.
reviews, our critiques, but it's just we know we don't know everything,
Yeah.
but we just want to have a laid back conversation. We want something that you could listen to and not feel like you're being talked down to, and that's
Well, and
exactly what we're trying to go with.
it's funny you should say that because like I literally just spent the last like I want to say 3 months like cataloging every single comic issue I have, and it's somewhere around the number of about 30,000. It's like that's a lot of and that's just comics. That's not like graphic novels or trades or anything like that. It's
Right.
just my comics. Over 30 years, and it's like yeah, that's 30 years of like basically two and a half, three companies like Image, Marvel, and DC, and then of course obviously some of the darker stuff. It's like there's like 30 or 40 years before that, and there's been several years after that. It's like
Yeah.
no one can have read of everything. Yeah, there was that one guy who read every single Marvel comic book. He wrote a book on it, but it's like
Mhm.
ultimately, like no one can read everything and retain all of it and know it. So, A, we're gonna make mistakes, and B, it's like it's just not possible. I mean, like
Yeah, and
that's a full time job.
again, we're just two dum dums that like comics. Let's just go.
Yeah, and
We
that's
we go with
take
that energy.
take a ride with us as we explore more
Yeah,
fun things that we love.
we're just gonna be using the show to be talking about our favorite characters, events, writers. We'll break stuff down. We'll do some research. We'll be breaking it down in a way that's not reading off of Wikipedia.
Yeah,
So
that
that's
and that's a really good point. Like I mean, no offense. I mean, I get it. It's hard to research a lot of stuff, but it's clear that some people's like scan the wiki page. Yeah, I know everything I need to know about. Let's see, the Captain Marvel legacy character. The Peter David run. It's like,
wow, you're on
yeah,
Captain Marvel today.
yeah. I don't know
That's
why. That's
two
really
examples of Captain
two
Marvel.
examples. I don't know, but there were two. I was referring to the Carol Captain Marvel, and now I'm talking about the Genus Valen.
Marvel.
Yeah, no, well, Captain Marvel's son, Gina was a Genus
Oh
Valen, right?
goodness, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's a whole hey, look, I actually like that. That's a fun Captain Marvel
Stay
run right there.
stay tuned for another episode. We could be
So,
talking
yeah,
about
well,
Genusville and Marvel.
it's like 60,
Uh,
70 issues. It'd be easy to cut through, right?
no, it's so much easier to that. It's not convoluted.
Not at all. So that said, we should probably get into this episode, and like we
Yeah,
thought, what a best way to kick off the episode, but to not talk about a specific character or event or book, but rather just talk about what made us fall in love with comics? Like, what was it about comics that was just like, that's the thing? Like, this is my jam, man. You know what I mean?
yeah. We're using our first episode to let you get to know us better, so they can continue to listen to us, but then and also kind of see where we're coming from
Yeah.
when we do discuss these different events or characters or storylines or everything about comics.
So I kind of want to use that as a jumping off point. I want to ask you, Josh, I almost call you Mike. I was going to say
Yeah.
Markwith. I'm like, no, why would I do that?
I
I've been
get
up,
that all the time.
dude, I've been up since 4. I had to coach this morning. I've
Well,
been up
like
since
that's an
4.
excuse.
It is an excuse. All right. Come on.
You've
All
known
right.
me for more than almost what?
That feels
More
like
than
10, 15 years now, isn't it?
15 years. So I think
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Well,
don't know.
what happened was I was gonna call you Markwith. I'm like, I've never called you Markwith. I'm like,
Yeah.
why would I do that? And then I was like, I slowly switched. Anyway, but I digress.
Yeah.
So, Josh, what what was the first comic you remember reading, or like what was like your first memory of like comics? Like, what was it like that was like, hey, it's like ingrained into your brain. Like, what if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah. Hey, I do mind you asking. No, I think what's kind of fun is when I got into comics at a young age, like most people do, of course, because
Yeah.
it's a younger medium, of course, at the beginning. But my first memory, really, what had gotten me into comics was with way back when we used to go to the barbershop, and then at the barbershop, when you got a haircut, he would give you a comic book and some bubble gum, and
That's awesome.
yeah, and we would get funny enough, like old school X-Men or
Oh,
90s X-Men. It was around the 90s, so early 90s.
so like the peak of X-Men.
Yeah, pretty much. So I mean, it was a hell of
Well,
a place
I
to
mean,
get
in terms of
into.
sales.
Yeah. But I mean, and I don't remember specific books or anything like that because it was a long time ago. But it
Was
was
it post Claremont or post Claremont?
oh good, it was X-Men. That's what it was. It
Oh, so
was
then
Wolverine. It was like
oh,
Wolverine. It's like yeah.
okay,
Um.
so it was post Claremont because Claremont only wrote like what,
Oh
like
yeah.
3 issues of X-Men and then was off. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, it was definitely Wolverine, Colossus, that team.
Okay.
And and then it would be Batman issues. It would be different issues and
Oh,
stuff like that. So
he
that
knew what
was
he was doing.
yeah. I mean, you could tell he probably just got it from his son who was just done reading comics or something like that, and just gave him away, which was what first kind of started that whole climb up the comic mountain. From there, then they used to sell them at the dollar. We had a dollar store.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this was like before Dollar Tree and everything like that. And they used
Yeah,
to
yeah,
sell
yeah,
like
yeah.
it was like a pack of like 2 or 3 of
Uh-huh.
Youngblood,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
Image Comics, the
Yeah.
Youngblood stuff, and that was just cool because they looked like the other characters.
Yeah, yeah.
But
That's funny. That's kinda
I
how I
was
got into I was gonna say that's kinda how I got into DC Comics, like, not to go on too much of a tangent, but, like,
Mhm.
because I only read Marvel growing up, and, like, I remember at, like, the local Costco, they would bundle, like, 20 DC books into, like, this big plastic
Mm.
Saran wrap box or whatever, and it was like, "Buy 20 comics for $10," and I was like, "Dad, buy me these." And it was, like,
Yeah.
right during nightfall, so when Batman's getting his back broken, I'm like, "Oh my god." Anyway, I
Oh yeah.
digress, but that's cool, man.
Yeah, yeah, no, so with that though, you talked about how you started reading Marvel most of your early stuff. So what was your first like that you can
Oh,
remember, your first introduction into comics?
believe it or not, I was a big G.I. Joe kid growing up. I
Mm.
love G.I. Joe. I still do to this day. Like, in fact, the current G.I.
G.I.
Joe.
Joe.
Oh, dude, don't even joke, man. I legit like they have like all the episodes on YouTube, and like I will like
Yeah.
no lie, like put it on in the background while I do stuff, and like I love it. But yeah, I got into the comics, and I remember like the comics being so much different than the cartoon. I was like, it was like real and gritty, and like people died, and like there's like one issue where like this saw viper like mows down like 6 like prominent Joes. I'm like, oh my
Mm.
god, he just I mean like murdered them, like not even a joke. I think it was around like issue like 56 or 60 or something like that. It was like it was the saw viper moment. He like killed like Doc and Quick Kick. It was like it was brutal. I was like, what happened here? I'm like, here I'm going from like G.I. Joe where everyone has a parachute and everyone gets lasers and no one dies. And like the
Mhm.
comic is brutally, realistic.
I can just
Larry.
see little Brian reading a GI Joe with like his favorite, Swift Kick
Oh yeah.
that figure in his hand, and then just it dropping with your jaw
Oh,
when you
you're
see him
not
die.
joking, man. Like, oh, like Falcon at the time for some reason. I love the beret. It was like my favorite character, him and Flint. And like I remember like Falcon, I think Falcon was in the pit. I'm like, oh my god, he's gonna kill Falcon. I was like having like a panic
Oh
attack,
man.
like reading the issue. Um, but yeah, like I remember like reading those comics as a kid, and like I very remember like the first one I bought because I could only read them because I was really poor growing up. I couldn't even afford a dollar comic growing up. But I
Mhm.
remember like the first one I ever bought was like I think it was like G.I. Joe like 116. It was like Search for Destro. And this is when Destro had the gold mask, and I was like, this is
Mm.
awesome. It's the coolest thing ever. That was like, yeah. I mean, like that was like my first introduction to comics. I remember very
Mhm.
vividly um the scene like my friends would have some like Thor stuff or some of the DC stuff. And I loved the DC designs of in the 80s, like the style of the I like it's funny, like I didn't read those comics, but the style of the 80s super DC superheroes has always been like ingrained in my brain. Um anyway, that's kind of where I started.
Mhm.
But in terms of actually like well, I don't think J.J. wasn't mainstream, but like mainstream comics, my first memory was going to a Star Trek convention with my mom, and she gave me like $50 for my birthday because she's like, you have $50, this is your birthday. And I remember like, well, I didn't want to buy Star Trek shit because like I don't care about that stuff. Like at the time, I didn't
Mhm.
care for Star Trek as much. Like I was more of a Star
Which
Wars
is
kid.
unbelievable if you know Brian.
Yeah, well, look, I was a kid. Star Wars was cooler at the time. It was like
Mhm.
Star Trek, a bunch of people just talking to each other. Anyway, so I was like, oh, here's all these comic books. Well, I'm gonna start. So I started going through this dude's back bin, and like I pulled out X-Men 4, 5, 6, and 7 of the Jim Lee era, those early 90
Mhm.
ones. I'm like,
Yeah.
these look really cool. Bought those. I bought What If number 27. It was the original What If, where what if the Phoenix had lived? I'm like, and it was like a Frank Miller cover. I'm like, this is so cool. And like, I remember I bought a bunch, and my mom was like, "Did you like it?" I'm like, "They have this thing called the Punisher. It's number 1. Can I buy that?" she's like, it's $20, son. And like, she felt really bad because I'd spent all my money. And so she like bought me Punisher #1 for $20. And that was like my first real jump into
Ooh.
like Marvel comics. And I remember loving the what ifs because it was like, I didn't know any of the history, but like, you got like a little history at the beginning, like what we know in the real world, Uatu, the Watcher's like, this is what happened, but what if? And like, I was able to like learn the history of Marvel pre-internet, like reading what ifs, basically.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. It's very much a sideways way of getting the history down. Just what you're saying. It's like you get the little snippet. Here's what really happens, but look
Yeah.
at this awesome new different story.
Yeah, like what if the Punisher's family hadn't been killed? And you're like, what? They were
So
killed? What
what?
happened? Yeah, it was like it was like that stuff. What if the X-Men had lost Inferno? It's like, what's this thing Inferno? Let's find out more. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like I love the what ifs because of that. And I always have had like a deep reverence for that series when done right. Now you briefly mentioned, like I said, you would buy like the dollar, but is there any like specific comics like as a kid that you really latched onto?
Not really for me. I think like a lot of people in my age, my generation, comic fans, we really latched onto Spider-Man or X. Like I think X-Men in particular because he had the X-Men animated series that was coming out.
Yeah,
And that was like a big introduction. And it was, you had the Jim Lee covers, but then you
yeah,
also had the I think like later on, around, mid '90s was the Onslaught stuff, which I
yep.
mean,
So
it
yeah,
was like Madura, right? I can't say his name
Joe
right.
Madureira. I think it was Joe Madureira. Yeah.
Madureira, yeah, Madureira. Like his art was just so cool looking, and then but
That's
then
all
you would
the Age of Apocalypse stuff too, man.
that too. That really got me back into comics.
Man,
The Age of
Age of
Apocalypse stuff.
Apocalypse, I'm telling you, when we do that episode, I'm gonna have a
I'm
fucking field day.
I don't even need to do any research. I have it all to memory right now because
You
I've reread that so many times.
it's exactly same thing, man. You've even read the later on offshoots where they're like, yeah, we're gonna go back to it 20 years later. Sure, I'm gonna
Right.
read that.
Like
I
the
mean, I will say, yeah, yeah,
X-Force run. It was so
yeah.
good.
I was gonna say real quick to that, like it's like that was one of the things like, in spoiler alert for who haven't seen Deadpool and Wolverine, but when
Mhm.
that version of Wolverine shows up,
I was losing it.
I almost screamed in the theater. My wife was like, "What is so big?" I'm like, "You have no idea what just happened right now."
Same with mine. She's like, "Oh, okay. He doesn't have a hand. Okay,
Kid,
what's the big
okay.
deal?"
I was like, "Come on, please pop the ghost, please pop the ghost, please pop the
Oh,
ghost." I
that
was
would
like,
have been so cool.
it was one of the few times I'm not, one of the people who like geek out like that, but I full on nerded out in the theater. I
Oh
usually keep
yeah.
it pretty cool, and that I lost it there. I lost it at
I
that.
did my usual what just under my breath. Taylor's just like, what? It's just like he looks weird. Like you don't even know.
You have no
You
idea.
don't even
You have
know.
no idea. You have no idea. I was like, that was for me. They did that for me.
Yeah, me specifically.
Well, the reason I asked this because I'm actually a little bit of a leading question because I love this story. What was the first trade you ever got?
Oh Jesus, yeah. Okay, so this is like so. I know I've told this to Brian like so many times. My introduction to like DC really or trades was Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Oh,
So
that was really? That?
no, Infinite Crisis is it Crisis on Infinite
It's
Earths,
not.
right? Or Infinite Crisis? One of the
It's
the
it's
first
Crisis on
Crisis,
it's Crisis on Infinite Earths.
right? I always get them
The
mixed up because there's so many different variations of it.
yeah, but no,
But
Crisis on Infinite Earths. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, I got it off of like it was some magazine ad. You could buy, you get a bunch of books
yeah.
and like oh wait, there's like a comic book here. That's awesome. It's DC. Okay. Superman, Batman. I know these people. And little did I know that it was every Superman, every Batman, a year-long storyline that encompassed one of the biggest crossovers of all time, different multiverses and everything. And as a kid, I had no idea what was going on.
I'll tell you right now, as an adult, and I say this jokingly, but as an adult, I reread it recently. I have no idea what was going
No,
on.
I
No,
still don't know.
I,
I've
I
read it
joke,
multiple
but
times.
no, you've read Crisis on Multiple Earths or multiple
Yeah,
instances. No, it's
yeah. I still don't know what's going on. Is Barry Allen? Did he die? Like, what's going on? I still
uh,
don't even know.
I will say it is one of the densest reads, and that doesn't even include all of the supplemental like tie-ins because like there was tie-ins.
Yes.
They weren't like the greatest of tie-ins. It was like, hey, there's a pink cloud on the horizon. That's crazy. Anyway, it
Right.
was a lot of that, but like the actual Book of Crisis is one of. I was recently trying to write up like an essay about it, but I was like, it is not only is the art dense as all get out. And I mean that in the best way possible, but it is George Perez who is known for just that kind of hyper detail, like hacking the frame with like as many little like nuances here and there. You've also got like Marv Wolfman writing like the densest script.
Wall-to-wall copy.
It's wall-to-wall copy, and it's just like it is. And then you've got every character known to man.
You're starting it off with like Orion from Atlantis and Blue Beetle and Firestar from some other Earth.
You've got Earth 3, Ultraman and Owlman, and like they're all just like, who are these guys? What's going on? They're flying into the whiteness. What?
Yeah, another Earth that was introduced for that book with that Polaris lady, or I can't remember her name.
Yeah,
Photon or something, and the Pariah.
Pariah and the Anti-Monitor. It's like for a book that is meant to be, I wouldn't say a jumping on point, but it's more of a culmination to eventually lead to a jumping off point. Holy hell, that is a thick boy. That is a thick bee.
There's a Wildcat, and then all of a sudden there's a different Wildcat. There's multiple Dr. Lights.
There's like 3 different Supermen flying around, not including Ultraman. It's like, yeah, it's not the easiest of reads.
No, it still isn't. And I was confused. It's a wonder that I'm still into comic books.
DC wasn't saying to DC at that. That's funny. That's really funny.
Yeah,
like I said, we'll eventually do an episode on that, hopefully.
Yes,
but
we will.
boy,
I think we'll do multiple episodes about it because
I
that's
think
going to have to take it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we had done a few precursors, and we tried to do one on Secret Wars, and the Secret Wars one went on for 2 hours. So,
we've been trying to do this for a while, so we've had a lot of practice episodes.
Yeah. So with the first comic books out of your way, like the first kind of like memories or whatever, what was the book that turned it, or was it just like a general gradual thing, or was there like one day where you're just like, damn, I love this medium? Was there a specific book or moment or incident or something like that like really like sung to you?
See, with me, I don't think there was like a specific moment. I think it just got more and more into the different stories and different timelines and different characters and jumping up, going from Spider-Man, because just reading as all the Spider-Man I could, like during the earlier, oh goodness, no, good Lord, no. Oh, actually, I love Scarlet Spider. I thought he was the coolest looking.
I don't know if you're being sarcastic, because I'm about to throw some shade down. Are you being sarcastic?
About being sarcastic
about the Clone Saga and Scarlet Spider and all that.
Oh no, I did like Scarlet Spider. I know you like clones. You're a Clone Saga apologist, but
I will freely admit the Clone Saga is the strangest, weirdest, dumbest, worst kind of not the worst. There's worse Spider-Man stories, but
yes,
I will not deny it is not for the faint of heart, and I don't mean that like, it's like, no, it is a lot of filler and a lot of trash in there, and I love every page of it. Every page of it. It's and I freely admit there is not a lot of good in there, and it doesn't matter. I love the hell out of it.
Right, it's a soapbox you can't get off of. No matter how many clones are thrown at you, and how many times they try to do a Clone Saga again too.
It's like it's not good. Like, I'm not gonna freely admit it's not good, but that said, I love it. You know what I mean? Like, it's, again, that was when I started really getting into comics. And was like, sure, this is what Spider-Man's about. Cool. I'm on board. Let's do it.
I'm all about it. Is there 3 different Peter Parkers? I'm about it. One with a weird up face. I'm all for it.
Well, there wasn't like a specific moment though. Was there any like thing that you like? Was there anything that's just like, I love this thing?
Yes, I don't. I don't. I think that came more later in just like when I was older in high school, because I think I was
much older when when I was more aware. I definitely was older for me. I wasn't like in high school. I was in college when I finally had the realization.
I think college was a big, because I was just reading anything. Like I would because I was so cool in college. I'd go to the bookstore and just grab a bunch of like the Barnes and Noble. I'd grab a stack and they just read on one of the couches like all Saturday during the day or cool. Something. That's what I did as an intern too. Like that was a weekend when I had no money. I would because I lived right on Hollywood Boulevard. I would walk down to Sunset and Vine. And I would go to the Borders that was there. It's like a Walgreens now. Go to the Borders, look at a bunch of trades, pick up a stack, and just read all day, like literally all day, and maybe get 1 or 2 coffees.
So Josh, I love it because we started off at E together, and I remember like Josh was because we were on the 3 a.m. and the 6 a.m. and whatever it was
swing shift stuff. It was crazy.
It was the worst. I can't even joke about it. It was good. It was the worst. But that's kind of what's funny. That's where we met because like I had a bunch of like what was it, Spider-Mans on my desk or something like that, and then you had like a Stan Lee mask on your desk. But I remember like you were like, hey, can I get a ride? I'm like, yeah, but dude, I'm staggered. I'm not leaving for 3 hours. That's fine. I'm like, okay, sure, I'll give you a ride.
Yeah. I did not want to make that walk because I had no car, and I remember
the bus.
Yeah, the bus was just crazy. I used to take the bus at 1 a.m. To get to the 3 a.m. shift because it was the last bus of the night.
Yeah, and you basically got there at 2, and we're just sitting around the office until like 3 in the morning.
Yeah, I would stop by Ralph's and get a Sprite, yogurt, and banana as my breakfast, and then go and wait until the Eastern Coast feeds. So that was fun.
I remember that.
I remember when I first got my my other job. They like, hey, can you go do a run? And I was like, I don't have a car, and they're like, you it's in the shop, like you don't have like, no, yes. Like I don't have one.
Permanently.
Like, oh, you need to get one for this job. Like, and then from there, I just ran out and got the crappiest little red car that could just get me from.
Oh, the little one,
the Aveo that I handed down to my brother, and that he kept breaking down on him on the 405. So yeah. But yeah, so I would take, I think that's when, going back to just the comics, I think that's when I started understanding more of like what's going on, like instead of more of just like, well, not only that, just like understanding the storylines too, I think better, and just like instead of, pretty pictures and nice, like just kind of getting more into this is going to sound bad, more into the lore of it. And just the, recognizing writers and artists and things like that. Like once the early Ultimate line came back, and the first Ultimate line, and reading the Age of Apocalypse, like we just talked about, with X-Men, and then a lot of the Superman stuff and Batman, Green Lantern. I even like the Teen Titans and the Outsiders and all that stuff.
And Jeff Johns, I think back then when they were starting.
Yeah, when they're starting, I think even just stuff before that though too, like the earlier stuff. And
okay,
what was that? I'm having a brain fart. But what was that group with? There was like the Teen Titans, but for JSA, it was
for JSA.
Yeah, it's like it had a lot of the legacy.
Not Young Justice, right?
No. It was like legacy JSA people. Like Jade was on it. Atom Smasher.
Not All Stars. Was it JSA All Stars?
No. It was. Something I can't think it out off the top of my head. I will.
Why don't you Google and I can.
That's what I'm doing. Some Google. Yeah. So what about you, Brian? Like, what was your your turning point? The comic turning point.
Well, anybody who's known me I bring the story up like all the time because like why not? I can tell you like it wasn't when I read the issue, but it was the issue that someone clocked it for me. There's a story arc in Captain America right before they did the Heroes Reborn, where Liefeld and Jim Lee took over. There was a arc by Markwith and Ron Garney called Man Without a Country, and in it, I'm gonna pull out my little book right here.
Infinity.
Infinity Incorporated.
Yes, that was
okay. One. Okay, I know of the book. I have not read them, to be honest.
It was like again, it was like Teen Titans had the legacy.
Yeah.
It was like legacy. It's kind of like what Infinity was like JSA, like Obsidian and excuse me, Atom Smasher, who was Nucleon at the time, and stuff like that. But sorry, I digress. But keep going.
Oh no, it's all good. I was gonna say it was funny. So there's an issue that's very near and dear to my heart. And it's where basically Captain America has gone missing. The super soldier serum's given out on him. He's basically presumed dead, and some terrorists have taken over the Jefferson Memorial and have the president hostage. and basically their only demand is like, where is Captain? We want Captain America to exchange for the hostage. And this, essentially an FBI agent is like, getting pissed at because the Avengers show up and they're like, he's not going to show up. We need to figure a way around him. And like the dude's like, who cares basically about Captain America? He was just a man, not a god. And Hercules gets right in the dude's face and is just like, an accident of birth, young mortal. For the tales of his deeds hush even the lords of fabled Olympus. Even they pause to admire his spirit, to whisper the stories of the earthbound legend who has saved the entire world from the darkest of tyrants. On Olympus, we measure wisdom against Athena, speed against Hermes, power against Zeus, but we measure courage against Captain America. And
so good.
It's one of my favorite quotes from a comic book. And I remember I was driving with my roommate at the time in college, my friend Andrew, and I was telling him like that story. I was like, dude, it was so cool, like this thing. And I'm kind of like recounting it, like my not verbatim like that, but like essentially that. And he literally stops and looks at me, and we're driving in his car, and he's like, you really love these things, don't you? And it was like right there. And I just was like, yeah, I do really love these things. I absolutely do. That was the moment when it clicked for me. Like, I do love comic books. And that was like in college. I was like 18 at the time. It's like freshman, but it was like, I remember recounting that story. It's like, that was, and it literally was that moment. I was like, yeah, I do. I really do. And it only kind of grew from there. I remember, reading like my first Preacher comic for the first time, and like my mind being blown again, like right there. I was reading this Preacher comic, and it was like, ironically enough, I bought it because the pull quote at the top was like from Kevin Smith. It was like, even better than going to the movies. I'm like, well, if Kevin Smith likes this book, I've got to read it. I was a big Kevin Smith fan at the time. And I remember it started in the middle of a story. I had no idea. I didn't read the first trade. It was just in the second trade. And it's, Jesse Custer and Tulip, and they're being held hostage by these his cousins, or not his cousins, but his relatives. And he goes to hell in a handbag. And it was like the most adult thing I'd ever read. I'm like, comics can do this? It was like reading Quentin Tarantino, like a Pulp Fiction, but in a comic book form. And I remember at the time I was like, this is fucking amazing. Like, I literally was like, this is amazing. I love this thing, and it's literally only grown from, you know what I mean?
Oh no, yeah, totally. I think one of my favorite books of all time is Infinity Gauntlet, because there's so many different moments in there. Like, one of my favorite Captain America moment is in that book.
And it's the famous scene. It's where
it's I have it pulled up now too. This is after, for context, this is after Thanos has basically taken out everybody in like the Hulk, Cyclops, because they did this one huge just like last ditch effort to fight him, and
turns Wolverine to rubber, and
just kind of basically kills everybody with barely using the Infinity Gauntlet, and
1% of the power of the gauntlet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to make it fair. Even though Thanos himself already is overpowered, but there's the panel just goes. It's just three. First, it starts with three quick panels of just Captain America just walking right up to him, right up to his face, and just his moment of just, as long as one man stands against you, Thanos, you'll never be able to claim victory. And it's just like, that was so badass. And then Thanos proceeds to
demolish the shield.
Demolish a shield in one swipe. So it's just how badass like Cap is, and how moments like that can be.
It's funny, like, I just read a moment from Cap, and I'm actually, the other one I was going to pull was another moment. It was actually from a Daredevil comic, but it was about Captain America. But it's funny, I was always sad that they didn't have that moment. It was kind of in Infinity Gauntlet in the movie, but like, it wasn't like that. It didn't hit like that. Like, I remember reading that, I was like, oh, and because that's Captain America's, like, as long as one man stands against you, you will never claim victory.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did that as much as they could with that last moment before the on your left. I think that was because you have Cap just standing by him, straps in after his arm is like barely hanging on.
Well, I meant in Infinity Gauntlet, not in, or Infinity War or whatever. Not
that's what I'm saying.
Well, no, it was when
gotcha.
When Thanos is right before he does the snap, to basically.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah.
I was expecting it there because it was like that last stand, where he is just demolishing people left and right. You know what I mean? Like, it was, I felt there was a place to do it. It should have been there, because you see that moment where Cap is like pushing against him. You can see Thanos like, what?
Like, what's going? Like, what was this,
bro?
Like,
come on!
I don't know what. like this shouldn't be as hard as it is, and who are you? I just
Yeah.
I have like almost all the stones right now, but yeah. So I mean, it's moments like that, and just I think art like that.
Lim, I think, would do the second half of that. I always
Right.
wish that George Perez had been able to finish that book. Because, I mean, like, no disrespect to Ron Lim. I think Ron Lim's a great artist. But to have seen George Perez finish that book out would have made it just, like, next level.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, well.
Anything George Perez did was next level anyway.
I
So
mean, I think it's the cover for number 3 where it's just Thanos or with it. It's like, come and get it or something, or come and get me or
yeah,
whatever.
so good. It's
Yeah.
so good, and
Yeah.
we'll discuss this in later episodes too. We'll do breakdowns and just of
Yeah.
what the history of the books are, but just the Infinity Gauntlet of just Thanos. Just it was like kind of my introduction to him of how badass he was, and just all the cosmic comics
shenanigans.
really, and this
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
started my love for the
You're a big
Marvel
Guardians
cosmic.
guy. Yeah, you're a big Guardians guy. Annihilation,
Yeah,
Conquest, all that. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and with that said, one of the things I want to ask you is like, what? I mean, and this doesn't have to be your top 3, or even
right.
like, and this can be in any order. But what are 3 of your top books? Like, just pick 3 of your top like books or moments. I mean, you could
Yeah.
argue Infinity Gauntlet is one of them, but what have you got? What have you got on the plate?
See, I have so many that like
Yeah, that's what I'm
Infinity
saying. Like,
Gauntlet
we can do this in every episode. Like, what are your top
right.
3 this week? You know what I mean?
So we'll do like I'll do one, you do one, I'll do
Sounds
one,
good.
you do one.
Sounds
So
perfect.
it's not just me talking about like 3 books, but I have so many, so I'm just gonna just be picking like 3 off the top of my head. I'm
Okay.
gonna try to.
Well,
Uh,
someone didn't do their work. I
I
actually
know.
wrote mine out.
No, I just have a bunch. It's just like because
Yeah.
you could, for me, I would at the beginning I went in and out of comics. So I
Yeah.
mean, there's and some of the ones I've already discussed, like Age of Apocalypse, the Crisis stuff,
Ironically enough,
Infinity Gauntlet.
Age of Apocalypse was my number 1 pick for
Oh,
this
nice.
list. I'm gonna change it, but that's still funny.
Yeah, going off of the we were talking about the cosmic stuff. I'm going to just quickly talk about Annihilation and just all the Annihilation kind of sagas after that, because that was just had me glued to the page
Yeah,
during that
they're
era. I
great.
mean, it was
Was it
Annihilation
Abnett and
came out.
Lanning?
Abnett. Oh no, first it was Keith Giffen.
Oh, it's right, Keith Giffen. That's right.
Keith Giffen. It was
Yeah.
amazing.
R.I.P. baby.
R.I.P. But my God, he was such a good plot
Yep.
person. And just story. I mean, without him, there would be no 52. There'd be no great moments like the One Punch.
Mm-hmm.
There,
From Justice League.
Justice League, the Justice League One Punch.
The 80s Justice League is great.
So many good, Booster Gold and
Blue
Blue Beetle moments.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about comics is when you have good writers that make D-level characters into top tier A-level characters, and that's what like Annihilation did. It started off. It was around the time. It was at the actually at the same time as Civil War, and it was the actual war book at the time.
Yeah.
Because for those who don't know, it was basically what had happened was Annihilus, who's an old school like despot type of villain from Fantastic Four, who's always been at the tucked away in the negative zone. He found a way to break free from the negative zone and started taking out just people and planets and just breaking into the
Annihilation Wave.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it was. His army was called the Annihilation Wave. So first it takes out the Nova Corps. It takes out most of the Kree. And so you have all these different cosmic entities kind of coming together to fight this Annihilation Wave. Like Thanos dies. Silver Surfer gets cracked. Galactus gets his butt kicked. I mean, there's so many like, oh my God moments and so many great moments. And then it brought in one of my what would soon to be one of my favorite characters is Richard Rider Nova. Like they elevated him so much and gave him not just a power boost, but just a character boost. Then I just he's been one of my favorite characters ever since. And it led into his own book. It led into Resurgence of the Phalanx. It came back to the more of like scroll stuff. I mean, it was the catalyst for a lot, like the Shi'ar Kree War, or Inhuman in like that whole stuff too was just amazing. In Nova's own book has another one of my favorite moments where like he comes back down to Earth after Annihilation, and he's like coming home, and he's just this overpowered person. And once he touches down, Shield comes over, and they're just like with Tony Stark at the time, and they're just like, "Oh, it's you." And he has like this meeting with him, and he's still kind of this kid, and then like Tony Stark is just like, "Oh, we heard some like off chance stuff about it, but we didn't really think it was anything." It's like, and he just goes like, Thanos died. The Kree is decimated. There's no more scrolls. Nova Corps is all gone. And I pulled out Annihilus' throat through his mouth. So what have you done lately, with your little civil war? Like it's just that just moment was just one of my favorite just pages of all time.
That's funny. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's again good character, good story, good crazy, good art, good writing.
And without it, we wouldn't have the Guardians of the Galaxy movie or book as we know it.
Yeah, the modern day version of them, not the original, the 31st century ones.
Yeah, Star-Lord. I mean, Star-Lord was way different in Annihilation than he was in Annihilation Conquest, which was a great. I mean, if you have a chance to, for anybody, I mean, read the Guardians side book from Annihilation Conquest. That was the start of it. It was much like a Dirty Dozen of Cosmic Marvel. It was so good. Because you have Groot. Like Groot didn't just say "I am Groot" at that time too, so it was just great. So Brian, your turn. What's one of your top 3 books?
My turn. I'm gonna go a little bit. I'm gonna go from the cosmic down to the nitty gritty dirt level. I was gonna say Age of Apocalypse was my first one, but since we kind of talked about that, we'll probably do it. But that I'll leave it alone. I'm actually gonna pick. I'm gonna do all street level books. The first one I want to talk about.
I'm gonna do all street level books.
Yeah, I thought so. Criminal by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. Anybody cry? Ed Brubaker is one of the best like street level crime noir writers in comics right now. His stuff like Reckless is great. I just read Where the Body Was, which is a great almost like a podcast or like a murder podcast, but done as a comic book. But yeah, his first kind of like not outing, but like his first like big, I would say mainstream kind of like success was his book Criminal, and it just follows a bunch of dirt bags as they try and pull one over on everybody, and it's just good writing. If you're looking for like crime noir, like that's the place to start. What you got for number 2?
Well, I mean, and also just going off of Brubaker stuff, I mean, a lot of his Captain America stuff was amazing.
His Captain America stuff was great. His Batman stuff was great. Yeah, his X-Men stuff, honestly, I hate to say, and I don't mean to be rude, but like honestly, I'd say the weakest of his like over or whatever the hell it is, like it's like of his bibliography would say is like his X-Men stuff. Like I think, and I imagine that probably has more to do with editorial, because the X-Men editorials notoriously, it's a lot to juggle.
I don't know what to do with them. Yeah.
Well,
also, I mean, that was like Deadly Genesis stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's where he finally revealed who. Yeah, it was Deadly Genesis. He revealed where the third Summers brother was, which they've gone back and I don't want to get into Adam X or anything like that, but that's a whole other discussion for later.
Which also, also just Vulcan moves on to another Annihilation stuff with the Shi'ar and Kree War.
I was going to say what's interesting about that is how like they reappropriated the Phalanx for that, because the Phalanx were just villain of the week Sentinels for X-Men, and then they just we got done with that, we're done. I was like, is it the same Phalanx? It is. Okay, that's cool. Do that more. Like yeah,
and then spoilers. So if you haven't read this, then whatever. But the spoilers of just like Ultron being the big bad of that was just so like, oh my god, for me.
Yeah, that's cool. Let's whip through these. What's your number 2?
Yeah, no, you're trying to keep me moving along. I'm sorry. So my number 2 book, I'm gonna go with a Batman book. I know.
Nice. Which one?
This is one I don't know if a lot of people like this one because it is a lot different, but when I first read this, I was just crazy about it. It was War Games.
Oh yeah.
Which I just loved what I loved about the book, and what I love about this book is it's you get the desperation and the nonstop-ness. That's not really a word, but the nonstop kind of.
We're making it a word.
yeah, of events that keep going and just they're at their brim, kind of like how it was with No Man's Land and everything, of just like one thing leads to another, and
Yeah, well,
Batman is just like is him and his resources are at their edge.
yeah,
And it starts off as a certain character tries to get back into Batman's good graces. Um, they find one of Batman's plans, which, my God, Batman and his plans have gotten him in trouble so many times. Uh, she finds one of his plans and enacts it, and basically, it's a way that Batman could ostensibly just take over the Gotham Underground. And she make I said just let the cat out of the bag, but try to they make a big meeting with all the heads of all the crime families in of Gotham, and of course, all of those heads bring their bodyguards, and uh, tensions are just way up because you have a lot
way
of
too, yeah,
enemies. Yeah, wait, like enemies, and just like one thing leads to another, and they all like there's people that get shot or get killed in that meeting, and then from there is an all-out gang war uh in all
Gotham
throughout
City,
Gotham. And then things just keep like Batman has
just
to use,
escalating.
yeah, it keeps escalating, but he has to keep using all the resources that he can, all the people that he knows. And then
Yeah,
like they're just it's not safe. Like Tim Drake gets attacked in high school because
yeah,
he knows like a family member of one of the crime families. And then
mhm.
there's, I mean, it just the reveal to of just the one crucial part of the plan that
Mhm.
this person did not know was
Yeah, oh,
Matchstick
yeah,
Malone.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, the matches Malone, yeah.
that got me. I was like, oh my gosh!
It's funny.
And the reveal, like, you don't know who that is, type of thing.
Yeah, it's funny, I haven't read those since, like, they came out in I have both of the big
Hmm.
trades that has, like, all of but I haven't read them since, like, they were, basically in singles. But I remember very much that reveal. I was like, "Oh, you fucked up, honey.
Yeah, it was such
Whoops."
and
It's a big reveal. I was like,
it's a
"Whoops,
big
you messed up."
reveal. It's both a small but such a big reveal. It's like
Anybody who's, like,
in the
ingrained in
know.
anybody who's in the Batman mythology, when that happens, you're like, "Oh, no. Oh,
Yeah,
no."
I think what really it reminded me a lot of the movie The Warriors. So I
Um,
just kind of like the nonstop. They're just trying to get from
yeah,
A to
when
B,
it be, yeah.
and it keeps escalating, and they have no rest. And then that's the same thing with just Batman. And this is what I like stories with that type of
See, you love Nightfall
nonstop.
then, right?
Yeah, and Nightfall is great too.
Actually, I
I
really do
think,
enjoy Nightfall. I really do. Again, it was
yeah,
that '90s era of comics where I was just like, "This is crazy." You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
like, what is going
Like
I mean,
what?
like
And then what? And then
yeah,
what?
yeah, it just keeps escalating.
And then it
That's
moved
funny.
on to like, and just, from that branched the Red Hood stuff, branched
Yep.
thing, just elements from that. So I really love that book, and just and if it, I recommend it to a lot of people who ask me like, who
Yeah.
I want to know more about the Bat family, like more
Yeah.
about the people
Let's get
around
Batman
Batman.
lined up,
That's
yeah.
because you get everybody in there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
it's chock full with everybody. That's cool.
yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. So Brian, that was my two. What is yours number two?
I was gonna say, speaking of, if we're talking about DC, Hitman actually, which
Hmm.
that's Garth Ennis and John McCrae, and basically it's about a hitman who gets infected with some alien DNA, and it's almost like that's a moot point to it all. Like he has the ability to see like through walls and stuff like that, makes him a better hitman, but like it wasn't about that. It was about the relationships this character had and the zaniness and the insanity that kind of went around this guy's life. Like I mean, like literally, there's a zombie night at the Gotham Aquarium where they're having to kill baby zombified seals and stuff like that. Like it's just silly, over the top, and fun. If for fans of The Boys or for Preacher or whatever, it's like that stuff light. But there is some really good character moments. There's a specifically like a very good I don't want to actually. I'll save that for later. But anyway, I was just talking about Zombie Night at the Gotham Aquarium is a good kind of inlet into that world. But Hitman was just like one of those books that I really just enjoyed. You know what I mean? Like I hate to say it, but I almost enjoyed the ending of it more than I enjoyed the ending to his other book at the time, which was Preacher. I really, I mean, the emotional ending to Preacher is great, but there's a real finality to Hitman that I always enjoyed. But anyway,
Yeah, I was about to
digress.
say Hitman's a good like watered down Ennis, like Ennis with
Well, he had to play within. He had to play within
that's
the
with
rules.
rules.
He had to play with the rules, and I like him better when he has to. When he has to like, because he pushes boundaries, but he still stays within the guidelines, and it creates it. Sometimes it's one of those things where necessity is the mother of invention. You know what I mean? And I find when he has a little bit of those guardrails up, it makes for a better book. It makes for a better writer. But that's we will do a Garth Ennis discussion at another time.
Oh goodness, I have to like emotionally prepare myself for a Ennis like retrospect. Like I've been reading his newer book Babs right now, which is
I have the first 2 issues. I haven't read them yet though.
it's it's starting. It is definitely it doesn't jump off like like the boys did. With boys you're off and running. This one is more of like it's still kind of like Ennis light. It's
Okay, that's good.
it's not as crazy as the boys, so which can be good.
One of my favorite one of my favorite books that I ever did is a book called The Platoon, and it's about Frank Castle before the Punisher leading a platoon through Vietnam, and just sort of the camaraderie that go, and that kind of ties into a little bit of the Hitman stuff. But I digress.
I remember those covers. Those covers. Those covers were so good.
Goran Parlova. It has one of my favorite endings in a book. But we'll talk about that. Like I said, we'll save that for later.
We have a lot of like teasers in this episode.
Lots of thoughts. Lots of.
So yeah, I've been trying to like break down the third one. Do I go another Marvel? Do I go another DC? Do I go to a third party? And I just keep coming back in my head.
Go with your heart. Go with your heart.
I know, and it's going back to Marvel.
Okay.
And it's something that one of my favorite Spider-Man books of all time.
Okay.
And it's definitely not it's kind of like not a controversial pick. Okay. It's definitely a lot of people don't like, but it's the Coming Home storyline.
Oh darn.
Oh god. Oh good lord. Close.
Not Brand New Day. Close. What was it? Was it not Brand New Day? It was the other one. Anyway,
One More Day or something. No, I can't remember. Oh, or whatever. But
it was
close. It's same writer. It's Coming Home is one of my favorite Spider-Man books of all time.
That's the first arc of JMS or J. Michael Straczynski. Is it the first one or
it's very close to it. I think it's in the earlier. He had some stuff before that, but it's definitely in his earlier stuff.
Is it around the 9/11 issue?
Yes, I think so. It's JMS, John Michael Straczynski with JR, which is John Romita Jr.
Yeah.
And it's another one of those
J. Scott Campbell doing covers.
Oh yes, yeah. And it's just another one of those nonstop books where Spider-Man is at the peak of exhaustion and the peak of this nonstop escalation of him trying to fight this unstoppable force of Morlun. Who is it's the introduction of Morlun. It's the introduction of just the mysticism thought of Spider-Man, which that's with that I'm like
the totem stuff and all that.
Yeah, the totem stuff. I'm like
Ezekiel and all that.
Yeah, I liked Ezekiel. I liked the other side of the coin type of thing. I like the thought process of like with Peter Parker, like was it random or were you chosen?
Yeah,
and that's what I like. That's what I came out with that. But mostly I love the art. Mostly love it's the nonstop. I mean, it's kind of peak Peter Parker where he knows he's outmatched, but he still keeps going.
I've noticed a recurring theme, at least with your top 3 books, is you like characters that are beaten and blackened and into a corner and have to like summon that internal strength to kind of like dig their way back out again, almost in a sense.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a good point. I like the you see the stretched true characters when they're broken down.
Yeah, when they're stretched thin, basically.
And it's the adage of it's what came up with Spider-Verse stuff. It's as Spider-Man, you keep getting up, no matter what happens. You keep getting up. So that was my. I mean, that's when I was a letterman in high school with football, and I had just it's like I know which kind of is cool, but then is immediately uncool because of that big Spider-Man image from Coming Home, like on the trade. I think it was him punching through the web and stuff as my image, or excuse me, like they had like an image on the back. And also, true story, the lady who was working and sewing that image died in the middle of making that Letterman jacket. So that was so it is also haunted.
Yes, that is,
But
man.
we're also talking about haunted picks. Brian, what is your last one?
Well, you'll actually like this one because it kind of lines up with what you were just talking. Like I said, I
All right.
originally was going to pick Age of Apocalypse, but somehow kind of ended up on Street Level Books, and it was a book I was going to talk about, in like sort of like one of those like seminal moments for me. It's Daredevil Born Again. It's when Kingpin finds out through one of Matt's girlfriends what Matt Murdock's identity is as Daredevil, and proceeds to slowly dismantle his life piece by piece, taking away everything that is near and dear to his heart. And eventually he's like, and then I'm going to kill him after I've taken everything away. And at the end, Daredevil manages to live. And there is so many great moments. It's one of the last like good like Frank Miller Daredevil moments. It's one of the last ones he wrote. I think he wrote one more story after that. But um, Born Again is just chock full of just like Daredevil at his he's at his wit's end. He's got nothing left. He's living like a bum on the street, and Kingpin thinks he's got him. And there's a point where he blows up his building. He's like, and they like there was no corpse. We didn't, but he's got to be dead. And like Kingpin is like freaking out now. He's been working out. He's like, there's no corpse. There's no corpse. He's like, I've taken away everything, but there's no corpse. And he's Matt. He's Wiley. He has lived. He's alive. And I've taken everything away from him. And there's one thing you have to worry that a man without hope is a man without fear. And he knows he's coming for him. Daredevil's gunning for him. It is one of my, and it's like I remember reading that as a kid. I was like, oh, this is really cool. I'm like, not knowing like how epically cool that was.
I think that's the thing too. Like when you're older, you understand more the impact of the writing and of the art.
Yeah. It's funny, the other pull quote, I'll make it quick because I know we're going to end this soon, but like one of the pull quotes I was going to pull out of that same story is when Captain America and Daredevil have to kind of like team up to fight this guy Nuke, who's like using the American flag as like it's like a symbol. And at one point I love that Captain America turns to him. He's like, Daredevil's like, why do you care? He's like, Captain America's like, he wears the flag. And he's like, and like Daredevil turns to him, I hadn't noticed. Which is great because he wouldn't notice. He's blind. Right. But it was just like and like Cap is just like, son of a bitch. But like I love that like in it though when they're fighting, like everything is going crazy, things are blowing up left and right, and the Avengers show up, and there's a bunch of dialogue in it, but the captions are really cool. It's like out of nowhere they appear, a soldier with a voice that could command a god, and this shows Captain America, and does, and it shows Thor bringing down the lightning and the rain to bring down the fire. Suddenly it's raining so hard it's hurt, and everyone who can falls silent, except for Matt. Matt's screaming at him. At a point, like, Iron Man pulls up his gauntlet and is like, you have 5 seconds. There's a soft hum as computer circuitry generates enough power to level a building and holds it, waiting. Not being stupid, Matt backs away. And it's a long night, and it's a horrible night. It's just like those moments, where it's like just really good writing. Frank Miller may be off the deep end at this point, but you can't deny that the artistry, the artistry of those early issues, or those were later issues for him on his Daredevil run. But it's like those. I remember reading that as a kid. It's like, oh, this is great. This is what comics are. I was like, well, little did I realize like those were the standout moments in comics. But like you talk about like a character being stretched thin to his absolute limit to the point where he's blown up and almost dead. And like I said, man, Kingpin knows he's up shit's creek. Like when he says like a man without hope is a man without fear. And like he is worried. He has every reason to be worried.
And it makes a big impact on the reader because you know who the Kingpin is at that point. Yeah. And man, wait, so Daredevil Born Again, Brian, where have I heard that name?
Well, it's funny because they were doing that as a show, and I've heard they're reshooting it and they're doing a lot of rework with it. But I mean, like for me, like I understand like the reason for using it because it's like kind of like it's got a double meaning. It's like but it's got a double meaning. It's like you reference the comic, or you true, or the fact that it's like it's being reborn from the Netflix series or whatever. We'll see how it goes. I I don't think they'll get that dark and gritty. I wish they would. I wish they would
Mhm.
really go that dark, because while it is dark, it does end with optimism. It's like you take that character all the way to the bottom of who he is, and he climbs out of hell. He literally
Mhm.
climbs, not literally, but figuratively climbs out of hell to find his way back. And it's really well done. A lot of it's done from the perspective of Ben Urich, the reporter. So you get like this like kind of cool like newspaper angle, kind of going newspaper man, kind of like
Mhm.
describing the events as it happens. It's just good comics, man. It's just good comics.
He climbs his way out of the hell. So you heard it here, folks. Brian has just now confirmed the rumor of Mephisto is going to be in the new Daredevil series.
Well, they did reference Mephisto in Agatha
Agatha,
recently,
yeah.
which I didn't realize. I guess there's a slight reference to him in the Avengers movie or something like that. Like Shield teamed up with Mephisto to help them uncover some of the Infinity Stones. It's like Easter egg in the background on a panel somewhere. I was like, what?
Oh, good
In
lord,
the
yeah.
movie, in the first Avengers movie. But anyway,
Yeah, I mean, so
oh,
Mephisto, he's everywhere. Daredevil,
okay.
confirmed. You
Well,
heard it here,
so
folks.
we are going to get through this real quick because we are running out of time. I'm going to make these real quick. Okay. First up, question for you. Are you a Marvel or a DC kid ultimately? Or does it matter?
It doesn't matter to me. Characters are characters. There's no, if it's both available to you, why take yourself away from the other one?
It's like asking, like, are you a Star Wars or a Star Trek kid? It's like, why can't we like both?
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's burgers or pizza when they're
Oh,
both
yeah.
available.
That's true. That's fair. Okay. Fair enough.
What about you?
I'm raised, but I grew up on Marvel comics. I agree with you. I like both equally, but um, if I had to lean anywhere, probably more towards Marvel, just because
Mhm.
I most of my collection, my reading has always been around the Marvel characters. Their continuity has always been a little bit better, and I get kind of caught up in that. That said,
Yeah,
like a good comic is a good comic, whether it's Image, Dark Horse, Archie, it doesn't matter. Like
no,
I'm not gonna lie, like 5 years ago, the Archie comics were some of the best comics that were on the rack. You know what I mean? So if it's good comics, it's good comics. I'm not
yeah,
gonna,
good,
discriminate.
a good story is a good story. A good
Yeah.
art is good art. It doesn't matter where it comes from.
So what does influence your comic reading then? Is it a specific character? Is it art? Is it writing? Is it the publisher? I mean, obviously it's not the publisher, but like what makes you chase certain books? I guess in a
I think,
general overview.
yeah, I think it's a mix of the character and who the team. So I have my characters like, oh, hey, they're doing new X-Men with, oh, Gail Simone's doing an X-Men
Oh,
book.
yeah,
I'll check that
that's
out.
called a buy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's stuff like that. I mean, or like, they could do a very obscure character, and then like, wait, Mark Waid's doing that? Was this, with Dan
Yeah,
Mora? Yeah,
sure. Why
anything
not?
Dan Mora is doing, I think it just, it's hard to say for me. I think
Mm,
mostly it is the team
mhm.
because I know if you have a good team, the book's going to be good.
Yeah.
There's no bad characters. There's just bad writers who don't know how to use the character. So
Mhm. That's a good
I
point.
don't think specific characters. Sometimes they will, but mostly like if it's like like a new Guardians team, but with people I don't know yet, I'll still check it out.
Check it out. Yeah.
Um, or if it's like a new twist on a book or on a
Mhm.
character or on a
Yeah.
storyline, but it's a team I haven't really heard of, I'll still
Mm,
check it out.
that's interesting.
Well,
Okay.
what about you?
I definitely find myself chasing writers more than anything else. Like I find there's certain writers that I get an automatic buy. It's like, okay, they're writing that book. I don't care. It's like, like for example, like I brought up Archie a few years ago. Um, Mark Waid was writing them. Like, I do not give a shit about Archie, but Mark Waid is writing
Hmm.
this. Okay, I'm curious to see where this goes. Turns out it was an excellent book, and I'm glad I did. There's certain writers that I will just get an automatic buy, like Mark Russell, or like I said, Mark Waid, Ed
Son of
Brubaker,
Mark.
or yeah, a lot of Marks. But like
Yeah.
Ed Brubaker, or Matt Fraction, I mean, like there's certain writers like Gail Simone. Yeah, it's just like automatically, it's like
Uh,
you're writing a book, I'm gonna pick it up. I do after that, I do tend to kind of gravitate towards certain characters, even if it's like a bad writer, I'll still like, I like Spider-Man. I'm gonna read most of the Spider-Man books. I
mm,
do like the X-Men a lot, unless I really don't like the creative team or I don't like where the book is going. I'll generally pick up all the X titles and stuff like that. I like Batman. I'm probably gonna read all the Bat stuff, but it definitely it's less with the art. As long as the artist is capable, I definitely like good art will keep me engaged. Bad art will throw me out, but like,
mhm.
as long as they're a decent enough artist, I'm usually but that said, like, like, look, Alex Ross is doing this. Okay, well, what's he up to? Let's pick that book
Right.
up. So
At least it's going to be pretty.
yeah, yeah, that's true. It may not be great, but it might be pretty. But yeah, I would say typically it goes writer, then character or team, and then after that, like artist or publisher.
Gotcha. Awesome. And then with that, Brian, what are you reading right now?
Besides everything, no.
Yeah. What would you pick as your top pull list right now?
Honestly, I'm really, really like loving. I mean, this is not fair to do this, but like, I'm really enjoying the Ultimate Spider-Man book by Hickman. And again, he's one of those writers that I just follow. I really am enjoying the Conan book over at Titan. Jim Jub's doing that. And the other one that I'm really, really liking is the Energon stuff that's coming out of Skybound over at Image. Like, I'm really enjoying the G.I. Joe titles and the Transformers titles. And I'm really, and Void Realm was good too, but I will say, kind of going back to the G.I. Joe thing, I like a good G.I. Joe book, and they're doing really well with that. What about you? What are you reading? What would you recommend?
So you're a jerk for already taking my Energon one. I know.
That's a double. That's called a double endorsement.
Double endorsement. But I can't even do that once. But going off a kind of a Hickman thing, I'm loving the Wolverine Revenge.
Oh yeah,
book right now with Greg Capullo.
Are you doing the red band or the normal coast?
I think I'm doing the normal one.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't
there's
know
the adult version. There's a red band. It's the adult version, more graphic and violent.
Wow, they're doing that kind of more lately off of that that vampire one.
Yeah, vampire book. Yeah.
So I'm also liking Dark Knights of Steel All Winter. It's kind of like more of like a continuation of that Dark Knights of Steel, like what if type of story.
Yeah. Yep. Elseworlds, get it right.
Yeah, more Elseworlds. Excuse me. Also loving the Ultimates. I'm loving the Space Ghost right now, which has been really good. And mainly that, and look, the most solid book that has been a solid book for like a year, maybe longer, is Nightwing. Nightwing has been at the top of that. Tom Taylor's Nightwing has been one of my favorite books, and his stuff with Titans as well has just been so on point. Especially the current stuff with Batman and with Nightwing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I will say real quick. I know we got to wrap this up. I will say I was so excited. Spoiler to see. It's spoiler for the next 30 seconds. I was so excited to see Bats put that costume on. Yeah. I was hoping for so much more though. Like the next issue, it's like we got like 2 pages of him, and I was like, no, like I wanted like a fucking issue dedicated
like a full issue of it.
Yeah, I would have killed for that. That said, like, it was still a good issue. It's still a good run. Some of those issues are some of the best, like, sequential art that has been done in comics in a while. So, and that kind of goes back to, like, I normally don't chase artists, but man, that art that's working for Taylor is killing it,
Yeah, and just the writing with that, the Alfred issue is just, I mean, just so amazing. It's just so solid. And I just, when the, Bruce is in the Nightwing, it reminds me of that meme of just, when, Bloodhaven criminals, when they see that Nightwing is now breaking everybody's bones and hitting way harder. It's like, oh no, like from the Planet of the Apes. Oh no. Like, it's, if you want to read the most solid book right now, it's Nightwing. I would put money on it, and that's why it becomes even. And that book has
won the Eisner several times, I believe.
And that book has made it so believable that it could take a lead position in the big crossover right now.
Yeah,
with absolute power. So, but yeah, those are just our quick pull lists. Again, this is a lot of, we're going to be wrapping this stuff right now, but this is going to be a lot of the energy, the type of conversations that we're going to have on this podcast. We're going to be talking about different storylines that we like or that we want to learn more about, more of what's just in the current zeitgeist. I like to say that word, zeitgeist, of pop culture. Like, we got a lot of James Gunn movies coming out. We got a lot of Marvel movies finally coming back out.
Yeah.
Breaking down some of those characters.
Yeah, I mean, like, and that's not to say like we need to tie everything to that, but if you do have questions about who's the Red Hulk or what's this Thunderbolts team about, or like who's Jor-El or what, I don't know. please feel free to hit us up on the socials. What are the socials actually, Josh?
Yeah. So I mean, we're on Twitter or X or whatever it's called now.
I'm never calling it that. I mean, I'll say formally Twitter, but I will not call it.
I'm just gonna call it Twitter. We got issues cast.
I'm gonna create a Blue Sky account for this specifically, and that
there
way
you go.
I'm gonna move there.
If I knew what Blue Sky was, I would definitely subscribe. But yeah, check us out on Twitter. We got issues cast. It's definitely where we'll be more active on socials and to answer questions and also get suggestions if you want to know some. That's what we kind of did with the public access. Yeah, the old Alpha show on public access. We got suggestions from people and we would just break it down for them and give our opinions on stuff like that. So please let us know. That's really the main thing.
Yeah, I'm glad we're finally doing this, man.
Me too. This is a long time coming. So and hopefully we'll do more of these.
Yes, we will. Even if no one listens, and it's just gonna be your parents and one of my friends.
Yes,
for the three people out there who are listening.
Right. Yeah. Hey, they are diehards. So we'll take it. So, but thank you again for listening, and just again make sure to subscribe and just keep an eye out for episodes to come.
So thank you.
So and again, my name is Josh, and I'm with
Brian.
I'm sorry. That was a horrible. That was a horrible intro.
Take it in.
I'm gonna keep all this in the edit.
I know you are.
Because I am lazy. No, so I mean, again, my name is Josh Markwith, and I'm here as always with
Brian Compton, aka the BComp.
The BComp, and it definitely reach out to Brian also on the BComp on the Twitters. But yeah, so we got issues. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.